Hi everybody, Alex the Pro here from Expert Forex, and in this video we're going to talk about the problem of optimizations that take too long. And hopefully at the end of this video you will see that this is not a major problem whatsoever. The other myth that we will look at is how important it is to have accurate optimizations, and that is why optimizations take a long time. People try and get those optimizations as accurate as possible. Now, it's been so bad that I've seen traders invest thousands and thousands of dollars in computers to get their optimizations as accurate as possible. So let's move on. Now, the first thing to realize is that the actual optimized settings are very unlikely to be successful in the future. There is a chance, but the actual optimized settings are very unlikely to work. And it is more important that you learn about the robot, how the robot works, the logic it follows, how the settings of the robot work, which are the sensitive settings, which are the important settings, that type of thing. It's more important that you learn that from the optimization process than finding the perfect optimized setting, because settings are best determined by a process of trial and error over a period of 3 to 8 weeks of forward trading with a big portfolio of strategies. That is the way all competition winners have won their competitions. That is the way all competent robot traders use. They test and find perfect settings by doing forward testing over a 3 to 8 month period. And when I say forward testing, they don't just forward test, they make improvements to the settings to make them work much better. And making those improvements is not rocket science. So here's the Zero to Hero course that we're looking at here. And the biggest problem is that traders want to use optimized settings here in step 5, and they want to go use those settings straight into their live account like that. So they've missed all the process of how to optimize and templates and understanding the EA and all that type of thing, and they've also missed the process of forward trading and improving the settings using the information you get from your forward trading. So here's the traditional shortcut. People buy the EA, they find optimized settings, and they put them straight into the live account and fail miserably. It is because they are taking this massive shortcut. This also shows that optimized settings aren't the final answer. Monitoring and managing your forward trading is the answer, because that is where you make your improvements. So here's an example of me trading 20 strategies of the profit retriever. I'm forward testing it. So here's an example of me forward trading 20 versions of the profit retriever. And what I do with that is I am trading them to see which ones fail and which ones succeed. And I'm developing the ability to adjust the settings on the failed ones so that they become profitable. That is the learning process that you need to go through. You need to learn the skills of taking a sick robot setting and improving it and making it profitable. Okay, and in the Zero to Hero course, we've got this process of using the rubbish bin and hospital portfolios. Those are for the sick robots, and I have a 4 video series, and it'll most probably expand to about 10 videos where I show you examples of how you can change ailing settings into more profitable settings. But let's get back to this process. And the biggest concern is that people think optimizing the robot is the be-all and end-all of the process of finding settings for live trading. But in fact, here is where the settings get determined. So getting here is more important than getting this one perfected. So I'm going to show you 5 alternatives of how you can get past this step and find the best settings and go on into your monitoring process, which is way more important. And a lot of traders get stuck here. They want to perfect and perfect and perfect, whereas It will just change as you go into the next process. So here we are. So there are 5 ways. Firstly, don't use optimization. And we're going to have a look at that approach. Then I have a process that I call the I wonder approach. Then there's a process that you can use open prices or control points rather than tick. Then there's a tick data process. And then there is a process of using other people's settings. And all of these are fine to use when going forward into the demo trading process. So let's start by trying to find settings without optimization. Now, about 20 years ago, there was a film made and it was called The Dish. And it was an Australian film about the role that Australia played in the moon landing and televising the moon landing to the rest of the world. They played a role in monitoring that and finding the landing location in that. And they used this massive dish to do that. And one of the funny parts in the movie was that as the most important part of this mission started unfolding, there was an electricity cut. As happens sometimes in the outback of Australia, no electricity. The scientists and the mathematicians lost all their settings. They didn't know how to calibrate this dish to find the required direction in which it should be placed. And they were going on, it's going to take us 2 weeks to manually calculate everything. And here's where the humor comes in. The manager of the dish just looked at them and said, "Hey, I can see the moon. Why not just point the dish at the moon and you'll be fine?" And that's exactly what they did. They didn't need electricity. They could manually change the way the dish is pointing, and they just got it to point towards the moon, and all of a sudden they got all the images and signals that they wanted. So story of that is, when we trade Forex, we think it should be the most complicated thing in the world, but it isn't. You can do it in a very simple way. And we tend to overcomplicate our lives from that perspective. So you can find settings without the optimization process. And I do that all the time. So the best traders, what they do is they take an EA, a brand new EA, and they simply add their own ideas of what they think the likely setting should be. It's quite easy. If there's a moving average, you know that moving averages work between about 8 and 24, something like that. So you enter the settings that you think might work. And many times this approach produces good results, amazingly. But very few people even try to attempt this because they think they don't have enough experience and that type of thing. And quite honestly, you're not going to gain experience if you don't try these kind of things. So number one thing to try, and you should be doing this no matter what your level of experience is try to guess which the results the settings should be. You then run it through the tester, and many times it will be positive. Then you run it through visual mode, you see it on the chart, and you can immediately see, oh, my moving average setting is wrong, or my targets are too big, or my stops are too small, or whatever. So you can do things without optimization, and many traders don't even consider that, but that is number one choice. If you can find the best settings, then do that without optimization. And the advantage of this approach is amazing. You can do all of this in 30 minutes. You can literally put the settings in, run them, see how they go. What you would then do is, there's another process, which is the next one. You can use the I wonder approach, which is mentioned on the slide, and then refine the settings to make them profitable. So you don't need optimization. You can do it that way. It doesn't require trading experience, but you will not build that experience until you try doing these things. And don't try and do these things perfectly. Just try and do them, and you'll learn from trial and error. Okay, now the second method is the I wonder approach, and it's basically a very simple approach. You load the EA into the strategy tester, and you say, start asking questions like, I wonder what the results I would experience if I traded my current settings. So in other words, you look at the default settings and you say, all right, let's run the default setting. Let's see what results we get. What happens if they're nice and positive? You don't really have to go overboard about optimizing. I wonder if I can improve my historical results, and we'll look at ways that you can do that. I wonder what would happen if I change this setting. So what you look at is you look at the settings. You say, oh, I wonder if I changed the time of day setting. If I made it start in the U.S. Open and end after the U.S. Open closes, that kind of thing. So you start wondering, and that's where the technique comes on. You say, I wonder if I change this. I wonder if I change that. I wonder that, and then you rerun the settings, and you'll see whether you're going backwards or forwards. And when you're going backwards, then you know you've gone in the wrong direction, and you change your approach, and you might run forward. So in the end, by using the I wonder approach, you can actually build up settings that are positive and work, and that might meet your requirements of, let's say, low drawdowns and high profitability. And there are other things like, I wonder what would happen if I tested other currencies. Our help desk gets, hey, I tested the pound and it didn't work. So if it doesn't work for the pound, try another currency. That's, people don't think about. I tested the pound on the 1 hour and it didn't work. Well, try it on the 15-minute. Try it on the 4 hour. People don't think any further. They want to force their will on the market, and that's the one thing the market will not be happy about. The market is the boss. You've got to fall in line with. So test other currencies, test other time frames, test settings at other settings at once, that kind of thing. So this is a trial and error approach, but it gets you thinking about the settings, which is what you should be doing when you are trading. You should be aware of the functionality of each setting and how it works and how it affects the results. By using the I wonder, you immediately see, oh, if I increase it, it goes worse. If I decrease it, it gets better. And then you start realizing what each setting, the role of each setting in the EA is. So that's number 2 approach. So you start using your own settings. Then you say, let's use the I wonder approach. Then you go on to the next one, which is then you use open prices or control points. Now, there are 3 ways of testing a EA. You can use every tick, which is by far the most accurate in terms of technically accurate. You can use control points and then open prices. When you use open prices and control points, it is a lot faster, but it tends to be less accurate, but not by much. And if you do the optimization in conjunction with step 1 and step 2, you'll start seeing the dynamics between the settings, and you'll know which settings to change and which ones not to change and that type of thing. So this is all part of the same process. It is much faster using those particular ones, and they produce results that are good enough. Remember, we just want to get to the point where we're forward trading some settings, and from there we can change those settings to be better and better as we go along. And the more you do it, the better you'll get, and the faster these things will happen. Because once you have done that manual changing of the settings in the forward trading process, you will be better at finding optimized settings that work, because you already know what the EA is looking for and what kind of things is, and you by creating more settings, you'll get better and better. It's a never-ending cycle of continuous improvement that occurs. All right, so that's another option, is use open prices and control points. Don't be fixated by a tick only. And let's have a look at the difference here. So tick is supposed to be the most accurate, but it will, in this particular case, it will take 22 hours and 39 minutes. So it's slow. If you use control points, it will take 2 hours and 57 minutes. It's 8.7 times faster than tick. And in this case, if you use open prices, it will be 43 times faster, because it will only take 52 minutes to run this particular test, the identical test on the profit retriever that I've got loaded here. So that gives you an idea of the speed at which these optimizations can occur. Obviously the every tick is extremely slow, and this is still quite a good one. The average one is most probably 4 or 5 days. So you've got to ask yourself, the settings that come out of this process are going to be useless anyway, because I cannot plug them into my live account. I have to test them for 3 to 6 weeks, and I have to change the settings in the process of testing them to make them more robust and better. So why do I need to spend so much time on the starting point of the process? Okay, so now the next area is use other people's settings. Now the downside of this is that you become mechanical. You just take the settings and plug them in. You have no knowledge of how the settings work, how they combine with each other, which ones are the most important ones, which ones are the less important ones, that type of thing. But you can use other people's settings. And here you can see we provide our clients with optimized settings. Here are all the EAs, and there are the results of our optimizations. And you can see the free ones, we do 520 settings that we provide. So you've got 520 settings to choose from in terms of that. Then on the paid forum, we have 1,400 settings. That's a huge amount. And you can see the results are far superior. And there are the EAs. So you can, depending on which EA you own, you can sort the results by your EA and find the best settings. So you can use other people's settings. As I say, it is the starting point. Remember, you don't go into your live account with these settings. You still go through the process of forward trading them for 3 to 6 weeks and making adjustments to those settings as you go along. Okay, so now I hope in this video it's become very clear to you that you do not use optimized settings and go straight into your live account trading. You go through the process of monitoring and managing your forward trading, changing the settings and refining them to meet the needs of your live trading portfolio. And sometimes that activity can take 6 to 8 weeks, but that's well worth it, because by the time you're trading your live portfolio, you have got so much more confidence in those settings, and also you are trading a portfolio of live settings rather than just putting your faith in one setting. Many times the problem is not the answer to a question you ask, but the fact that you've asked the wrong question. So optimizations taking too long is not really the problem. It is your approach to finding the best settings that is the problem. So once you realize that optimizations actually produce low quality settings and that the high quality settings get produced in forward trading, you will be less worried about the time it takes to do optimizations. So from me, Alex Deploy, cheerio.